Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast in association with Viper Goalkeeping. Sunderland gave us all a huge boost on Saturday when we casually dispatched our promotion favourites Oxford, but there's absolutely no rest for the wicked as another team tipped for the title visit the Stadium Light this Saturday. And to join us to discuss our game on Saturday is Jack from We Are The Posh. But first and foremost, Jack, how are you doing? Are you all right?
Mate, yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. I'm excited to come and have a chat about what for me is probably the standout game in League One this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely would agree with you on that. But I'm a slight bit biased, I must be honest. But I think I might have a point with that bias in there. I'm going to get it out the way first and foremost because I think it's probably something that a lot of Sunderland fans are interested in, and probably Peterborough fans as well. But it's hard not to start a conversation that's around the end of last season. Some Sunderland fans felt quite aggrieved at how the season ended, but of all the teams, in my opinion, that had affected most, and I've said this a few times, was Peterborough. How does the Posh fan base feeling after being effectively, in my opinion, voted out of promotion last year?
Yeah, I knew that one was coming. I knew I was going to get asked that. It's hard not to feel a bit bitter, and watching Wycombe in the Championship is difficult. I don't understand fully the whole mechanics and stuff behind it, but we moved out of the playoff places based on the points per game system. Given the chance, the run we were on, we were beaten Rotherham, we'd beaten Wycombe, we'd beaten Oxford, we'd beaten all the teams at the top of the league. And I do think whether we'd have gone on and got automatic or whatever, I do think we would have challenged certainly for promotion. So, yeah, it's a bit of a hard one. But, you've just got to sort of bounce back. There's nothing we can do about it now. And we've got a lot of the players left at the club from last season who are obviously feeling slightly aggrieved and they want to go on this season and make it one to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from a Sunderland fan's perspective, some people will agree, some people won't. I don't think we really deserved to go up last season. Don't not say we didn't deserve the chance, and I was happy with what happened, but there was a few Sunderland fans that found it relatively funny that Wycombe got absolutely stuffed on Saturday. Is it quite the same with Peterborough fans? Are you kind of enjoying watching Wycombe struggle immediately?
Yeah, all I've got to do is scroll down my timeline on the Saturday, and it's even if Posh win, it's mainly full of people laughing at Wycombe, who I think they lost 5-0 to Blackburn, was it?
They did.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, we've got to focus on our team, and it is not nice to see, but no one expected Wycombe to go there, and I do have to say, fair play to them. That is an amazing achievement, and it's hard not to feel jealous, and it is going to be hard not to laugh at them throughout the season. But I think Posh fans, and like me included, we've just got to move on and maybe laugh at Wycombe every now and then. But if we're not picking up results in League One, we can't really laugh at them not picking up results in the Championship. So it's important to focus on ourselves and maybe have a little laugh at Wycombe on the side as well.
Yeah, no, I echo those sentiments hugely. I think it just sometimes you feel a little bit of karma because I find it, and I'll say this openly, and apologies if I upset any Wycombe fans, but not really. I find it, and you probably feel the same, quite hilarious that they couldn't afford to end last season, but they could afford to start this one and seem to be suffering a little bit. It's still left a bit of a taste in the mouth, doesn't it? Do you think that's going to be it's going to be a rivalry that sticks with the Peterborough fans for quite a few years, that one?
The thing is with Peterborough, we will try and form a rivalry with anyone that we can. So the fact that this has happened with Wycombe now, I imagine that there will be some sort of rivalry there. Hopefully they'll come down and we'll go up, so we won't have to play them again anytime soon. But yeah, I said it's a difficult one. We feel hard done by, and rightly so. And like you said, it's all the teams that voted not to play because they couldn't afford it. I think it was Blackpool who then went out and bought 12 players within a week of the season finishing. So it's a hard one. Obviously now there's sort of going to be an announcement today, isn't there, that no football fans for potentially 6 months. So how are clubs going to fare for 6 months without fans when some clubs such as Wycombe couldn't have afforded it for 2 months? So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the outcome of it. But yeah, I think Peterborough and Wycombe now, there's always going to be a little bit of feistiness there that certainly wasn't there before.
Yeah, probably a little bit with Sunderland as well, but we seem to have built up a few in League One. Like Portsmouth was a couple of years ago, so we'll probably move on to someone else by the end of the season. But on to this season, and most important, like I say, moving on. Sunderland won on Saturday, huge win in my opinion. But you're 2 games in, one really disappointing and surprising defeat to Accrington, and then a hot-stopping win against Fleetwood on Saturday. So how different have the opening 2 games been?
So I watched them both. Obviously, we can't be in the ground, which is a shame. But I watched them both on iFollow. And truth be told, against Accrington, we just didn't create anything. I don't think they played particularly well, but we just looked sluggish. And considering sort of the value of our front three, you need to be sort of giving them the ball and creating chances. And first game, we didn't do it. They scored 2 cracking goals, to be fair to them. And they probably did deserve the win. And then obviously going into the second game against Fleetwood, I think personally Fleetwood obviously got to the playoffs last season. And I think they're going to be a promotion contender again this year. I think in Joey Barton, they've got a really top manager who is capable of taking them to that next level. I say we were 1-0 down going into the 90th minute, and I'm sort of sat there thinking, that's three games, including Carabao Cup, without a goal. And I'm thinking, what's happening to us? The season's over already. So to score 2 late goals to win the game was obviously very exciting to see, but it's the kind of game that you want to be in the ground to see. That's the best kind of win is a last minute win, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when it's like that late as well. One of the big things for me, looking at the game on Saturday for yourselves and obviously for us as well, it kind of felt like the first game of the season was very much oh no, here we go again. Whereas Saturday felt like, right, okay, that's why we're promotion favourites. Is this potentially the start of the season? Did the win in the way that you got it kind of make you feel like any negativity that came from the Accrington games now being sort of moves out the way and you can move forward and hopefully push up the league?
Any sort of win is going to sort of make the whole club and that is going to give them a lift. I think it's early in the season, so it's important not to read too much into it. I think last season we lost our first 3 games in all competitions and then we bounced back. So I said any win, especially against a team that you expect to be up there after losing to a team which, in no disrespect to Accrington, you expect to be sort of fighting at the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
It's gonna provide you with a boost. But I said it doesn't get any easier. We've played one promotion rival and then a trip to the northeast at the weekends. I think probably the most difficult fixture on the list. So be interesting to see how we deal with that. And like I said, if we get a win on Saturday, then our season's looking great. If we lose on Saturday, then suddenly the mood's negative again.
Yeah, because then it becomes like 2 defeats in 3, doesn't it? I mean, look at Oxford, who I've said a few times I tipped to win the league. They've started the season with 2 defeats, so I suppose it's a bit of a weird season. But after that, you've got quite a decent run after that, after the Sunderland game. So unfortunately for us, you do get a win. You've got Swindon, Northampton, and then Oxford at home. Are you, as a fan, looking at these next 2 games as sort of you can actually set a marker then?
You'd like to think so. Obviously, Swindon came up last season, but I believe they actually won League Two. So obviously, they're a more than capable team. They'll provide a difficult test, but it's the kind of game that on paper, if you want to achieve promotion, you've got to get 3 points in. Northampton, they're one of our rivals. They are, I'd say, maybe aside from Cambridge, our biggest rival. Many Posh fans might disagree, but I think Cambridge are our biggest rival, but still, Northampton will be a difficult test. They always sort of up their game against Peterborough, but we've got a good record against them for sure, and we'll be looking to get 3 points there. And then you said about Oxford with their bad start to the season. I mean, they haven't had an easy start. I don't think Lincoln away's a particularly easy fixture, and then losing at home to yourselves. But I think last time we played them was in March, just before the season was cut short, and we dispatched them 4-0. So ideally, if you're looking at the 3 games after the Sunderland game, 7 to 9 points is what you're aiming for. But like I said, it's early days, so even if things don't go quite to plan, there's still plenty of time to repair them.
Yeah. With the signings you brought in, obviously, there hasn't been that many. There has been standout ones. Obviously, you've got, I think it's pronounced correctly, Schmodix, and you've also got Johnson Clark-Harris that came in as well, obviously to replace Ivon Toney. But there's not been a great deal of movement in terms of players being brought in. I think you've moved a couple of players up from the under-23s potentially, but it's mainly been, I think, about 5 signings. Are you quite content with just the kind of small additions because you kept, apart from Toney and Madison, the majority of players?
I think personally it's been our best transfer window in seasons, and that might sound strange to many Peterborough fans after losing Ivon Toney, but year in, year out, obviously we change managers quite a lot, and we're used to sort of 11 to 15 new faces coming through the door every summer.
Yeah.
Which is obviously exciting to see new players, but I think our squad from the end of last season was settled and we were on a good run of form. We knew that Ivon Toney was going to be leaving the club in the summer. Even the most optimistic Peterborough fan was expecting to see him go. So that was something that they dealt with. And obviously we brought Johnson Clark-Harris in as a replacement, like you said. And he scored some good goals last season for Bristol Rovers. And I think he scored one in the EFL trophy for us against Burton, but he's yet to get a league goal. So hopefully he can get off the mark soon and sort of get firing. Whether or not he can replicate Tony's goals of last season remains to be seen. But the main one for me, Sammy Schmodix, when he got announced, because I think Portsmouth and Sunderland were both chasing him.
Yeah.
So to sign a player like that ahead of two of your promotion rivals was a massive thing for us. I think he did say last year, I think Darren Ferguson came out and said that Schmodix said he wouldn't go to another League One team. So when sort of we knew he was available for transfer, we were quite optimistic. And I think getting him in, he proved it with his late goal against Fleetwood at the weekend. I think that's probably the best bit of business we've had. You said about sort of moving players up from the under-23s. We've also signed a few young players who the club have a lot of hope for and they're expecting to see in the first team this year. We've got a young lad from Barnet, a centre-back, who's 17, I think. And Darragh MacAnthony, I know he obviously likes to big up his players to try and get a big fee from them in a few years, but he sort of said that he thinks he's going to be his most expensive sale when the time comes. So yeah, overall, I think it's been a really good transfer window. I think it's open for a few more weeks, isn't it? But I wouldn't expect anything from our side, maybe apart from a few people going out on loan. And briefly, you also mentioned Maddison. I think the whole feeling as a club is that it's a positive thing that he's left.
Yeah,
he was a top class player, I think, and there's no denying that. But I think the team performed better without him. He's not so much of a team player. I actually did a poll on my Twitter a few weeks ago because obviously he's not found a new club, asking if Posh fans would want him back, and I think it was a resounding 78% said no outright. So I think the fact that he's gone, I think Toney is a big loss, but hopefully Johnson Clark-Harris can replace him.
With Maddison, I suppose I've got to touch on it, and I feel like Marcus Maddison is discussed far too much by Sunderland fans, because I'd like him on a free transfer. I never understood the clamour too much, but Marcus Maddison obviously went on loan to Hull in January, so you've been away with him for a while, and I think the statistics said that you were far better without him. But say Marcus Maddison, at the moment it's on a free transfer, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of Sunderland fans that clamour for his signing. What are the pros and negatives of Marcus Maddison? Because if I'm going to ask anyone, it's a Peterborough fan will probably know the best.
Well, I don't know if every Peterborough fan would agree with me, but for me, he's a bit like Marmite. You either love him or hate him.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people on Twitter moaning about him. He is very theatrical. He does like to throw himself down a little bit. And if things aren't going his way, he will have a little bit of a strop and you won't get the best out of him. But when he is on form and when he is playing well, he's got one of the best left foots I've seen at this level. He's got a good set piece ability. He's got the ability to go past a man. And just some of the goals, if you watch a goals compilation of Marcus Maddison, more often than not, he scores bangers. I said it's just his temperament's a little bit questionable, but for me, as a Peterborough fan, I would not want to see him go to Sunderland because I think he would cause trouble in League One. I wouldn't want to see him go to another League One team because I think he would still be one of the best players in League One.
With Maddison as a player, I don't know him as a man, and I would never claim to, but there's always rumours that he's not off the rails, but he's a bit difficult to handle. Do you think him coming home to the Northeast would actually be quite a good move for him because he'd maybe settle down a bit and maybe concentrate on his football or make football his priority, should we say?
In January, when he was sort of looking at other clubs in the Championship, and I think MacAnthony said Charlton had made a bid, but he didn't want to move further south. He wanted to move back up north. So I think he was at Gateshead, wasn't he? Before we signed him. So he wanted to move back up to the north, and he has said several times sort of the northeast is where he sees himself living. Obviously, he went to Hull. Things didn't work out there for whatever reason. But I do think if you get him back into the northeast of England, then he's back at home and he's back feeling comfortable, then he might be able to sort of play his game and sort of focus on that. And I think that I don't know sort of what the chances are of you signing him, but I think it would be a top tier signing for you if you were to get hold of him.
Yeah. Are you surprised no one's picked him up just yet, or do you think that's just the current climate?
I'm surprised. Well, we don't know obviously if there's been any interest in him. We don't know who he's spoken to. I think when he went to Hull, he made it clear he wanted Championship football.
Mm-hmm.
And when he went to Hull, maybe he didn't show that he was capable of playing Championship football. I said maybe his temperament is holding him back. But I'm surprised sort of League One clubs haven't been sniffing around him, because he showed what he could do with Posh in the first half of last season. And yeah, even though his sort of his temperament and the way he is and the way he acts can be questioned, I don't think there's any doubting that he's a fantastic footballer at this level.
Yeah.
And I think that any League One team, I think he'd get into any League One team, maybe apart from ours based on what's gone on. But I think the majority of League One teams should snap him up, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there'll be a lot of Sunderland fans that agree with you on that. Looking at sort of your current team, I've been looking at the lineup for your first 2 games. There's not been a great deal of change, but one thing I have noticed, and I could be wrong with this, but it looks like there's a bit of a tweak to your setup, and you've gone with 3 at the back. Was that being implemented last season, or is that a new thing?
There was a lot of controversy around our formation last season, so we went on a little run at Christmas where we played the diamond in midfield, 4 back, and we lost about 3 or 4 games in a row. And obviously, as fans do, people were calling for Ferguson's head. He switched to a 3 back, and that was when our run started. We beat Wickham, we beat Rotherham, we beat Ipswich, we beat a lot of the teams that are at the top of the league. And I think that's the way that Ferguson wants to play, with the 3 at the back and then the wing backs getting forward. And I think that suits our style of play. And I think that's certainly what I hope will be our go-to formation this season. Obviously, it's nice to be a bit flexible, and if things aren't working, maybe change it up. But looking at the personnel we've got, you have to start with that 3 back with the wing backs for me, probably 90% of games this season.
And it looks very similar to sort of our setup in a way. Like, we've been playing with O'Brien and a variation of Greg or Danny Graham or Wyke up front. But I've noticed you've got Nathan Thompson on like the right-hand side. Do you use those back 3 as predominantly centre-backs, or do you have the likes of Thompson, who's predominantly a right-back when he was at Portsmouth, as someone who will bomb forward? Does he kind of join the attacks, or have you got like a flat back 3 that stick as it is, or is it very much that modern back 3?
It chops and changes depending on the teams that we're playing. So even when we were playing Accrington and we weren't performing, Nathan Thompson was stepping out into midfield. He's a very physical, because he's not the tallest, but he's a very, very physical player.
Yeah.
And he was stepping out into midfield to win the ball, taking it forward. Frankie Kent, who plays on the left-hand side, very, very good young centre-back. And he's also very capable of bringing the ball out of defence as well. But if that happens, sort of, obviously our fullbacks would either tuck in or our midfielders would drop back. I don't think we'd leave just one at the back. I do think at any point we would have a solid back 3, but both of our wide centre-backs are very much sort of ball-playing centre-backs. So it's nice to have that, and it's nice to sort of have the option to play out from the back. But they can both also defend really well. So if we're up against it, they're more than capable of sitting in as a flat back 3 for sure.
And another player you brought in, obviously, is Ryan Broom. How's he settled in so far?
It's a difficult one. We haven't really seen much of him. He started the game against Fleetwood at the weekend, and to be fair, he did okay. Originally, we thought he was going to be brought in as a number 10, but then when we signed Sammy Schmodix, obviously everyone would assume Schmodix would be the first choice, but Broom played right wing back as well for Cheltenham a little bit last season, and if I'm right, that's where he was deployed on Saturday. We've got Joe Ward at right wing back at the moment, who I am a big fan of, but he didn't have his best game at Accrington. So Ferguson brought Broom in, and he fits the Peterborough philosophy. He's a young lad, he's an attacking player, he likes to get forward, and that's exactly what Peterborough fans want to see at the club. And I think, given the chance, he'll be a big hit with them.
Talking about the Peterborough way and stuff like that, a lot of Sunderland fans will probably be quite frustrated at how Peterborough... There'll be 2 arguments. Peterborough failed to get promoted to the past few seasons. The other argument is the recruitment's superb at this level because you just replenish players. But we, as we said off air beforehand, had Aaron McLean on the show, and he said, it's no surprise that you've got this big amount of strikers that have started really well at Peterborough and gone on to do well further in their careers. So I think we've already touched on it a little bit, but the big talking point of the summer was Ivon Toney going, probably from a Peterborough perspective, from a neutral side anyway. We quickly replaced him with, in my opinion, one of the better strikers in the league that a lot of Sunderland fans would like, in Johnson Clark-Harris. But because Peterborough seem to get used to sort of bigging players up, getting a good sort of fee for them when they leave, does it make it a bit easier when you lose players like Ivon Toney because you've got confidence that you can just kind of almost replenish?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it makes it easy. Obviously, we knew that Tony was going to leave in the summer. We knew that he was more than capable of making the step up to the Championship, if not the Premier League. So Peterborough fans had accepted that he was going to go, but that didn't make it easy. I've been following Posh for 10, 15 years now, and for me, he's the most complete striker I've seen at the club. I said, I'm sure many people will disagree with that, but losing him is a big loss, as it would be to any team. But like you said, we've had Jack Marriott, we've had Dwight Gale, Craig McHale-Smith, even Aaron McLean to an extent, I think, moved on for a profit. And we do have a good track record with it. And we've got another young lad in our youth setup, Ricky J. Jones, who's only 17, 18. And he's already scoring goals for the first team. And I think MacAnthony said they'd rejected bids from Premier League clubs for him. So it's always nice to have them coming in, but at the same time, you want to be able to keep hold of these players. No one wants to lose their best players. And if you can keep hold of these strikers, maybe for an extra season, I think there's been times where we've sold players too early. Connor Washington comes to mind, leaving to go to QPR a few seasons back. And especially when you sell them in January, it costs you your season. We were 4th in the league that year and we fell down to 10th once we lost him. So I think as long as you've got a replacement coming in, it does ease the pain of Ivon Toney leaving. Yeah, and like you said, in Johnson Clark-Harris, he scored goals last season for Bristol Rovers, and I think he's got a bit of a history with Posh, but that was when he was a lot younger. So I think all's forgiven now, and hopefully he can sort of kick on.
We had a Bristol, obviously we played Bristol Rovers first game of the season, and the question was kind of the opposite about them dealing with the loss of Johnson Clark-Harris, which he said he felt like he was very much you had to play it with strength, and he had to be sort of the superstar. I can't claim to have watched Ivon Toney and Johnson Clark-Harris on a regular basis, but I've watched them enough to get an idea of what their style is. And they seem a little bit different. Like Johnson Clark-Harris is more of a strong target man that can sort of score from a few different angles, whereas Ivon Toney at this level seemed a bit more pacey, a bit more complete. From what you've seen, and it's not very much, it's only 2 games, but would you say that he's kind of a direct replacement? Is he kind of fit into the style well, or is he changing how it is up front?
I said it's a difficult one because, like I said, it has only been a few games, but Ivon Toney was a bit pacey and a bit more skillful, but he also had that. Obviously, I think Ivon Toney was 6'2", 6'3". He's quite a tall lad, so he also had that physicality about him.
Yeah.
It is early days, but they were both strong. Both of their hold-up play is good. They're both good in the air. I think Toney maybe a little bit better sort of with his feet, which might sort of slow down our attacking play slightly because we do like to sort of get quick balls in and in behind and that. But from what I've seen for the first few games, there's not been a real change in the style of play. Johnson Clark-Harris hasn't quite replaced Toney in terms of his ability, but I think he fits into the style that we use, and I think that it will work with him and either Issa or Dembele, whoever Ferguson picks up front.
Talking about Issa, he was obviously a player that Sunderland were also after a couple of seasons ago when we first got relegated, and I think that's when he was at Cheltenham and then went to sort of Bristol City. Now he came obviously to Peterborough last season, and I think because of how well Ivon Toney did, almost his achievements got overshadowed. But he's a hellish handy player, isn't he? He's as good as you've got pretty much at the moment, I think.
He went under the radar last season. He started off the season, I think, come December, him and Toney were the 2 top goal scorers in League One. And he did fade away a little bit towards the end of the season, and the second half wasn't quite up to his standards. But I think when you pay him sort of $1+ million for a striker at this level, you expected him to be a good player. And I remember watching him at Cheltenham, and we were interested in him that season that he left there as well. Didn't manage to get hold of him, but obviously we've got him from Bristol City since then, and I think he's got all the ability in the world to be the top goal scorer in League One this season. I think if he can find the back of the net and if he can play how we know he can, he's a cracking finisher. It's just whether his head's in the right place and whether he struggles a little bit sort of off the field, and he just needs to be, if he's in the right place, he's a more than capable striker and he can lead us to promotion this season, I think, but it's just about getting him in the right place.
You mentioned about Dembele as well. He's another player that I've been really impressed with, Siriki Dembele. But looking at the formation he's been playing with, that 3 at the back, to me, you mentioned before he's playing up front, but he's more of a winger, isn't he?
Originally, when we signed him, he was more of a winger, yeah. But towards the end of last season, when we got on sort of our good run on that, he was playing up front alongside Ivon Toney, which he's more than capable of doing. And I think we don't really play with wingers in our preferred formation, so he's adjusted well, and he is sort of an out-and-out winger, but I think he's more than capable as a striker, and he proved that last season working with Toney and Schmodic. So hopefully, when he's back in the team, he missed the first week of the season because of COVID precautions and stuff like that, but he was back off the bench against Fleetwood, and I think he changed the game. He looked really good when he came on. And I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't start up front at the weekend.
Do you think that we're more likely to see sort of Dembele ahead of Isa on Saturday alongside Clark Harris, or do you think you might even surprise us and go with Dembele and Isa?
I think Dembele and Isa will probably, I don't want to say that it wouldn't work as a partnership, but
too similar.
I think, yeah, they're quite similar players. And I think especially in League One, with the sort of the physicality of the defenders and the centre halves you've got to have some sort of physical player up front. And I think if we started Isa and Dembele, we might struggle with the physicality of Sunderland's centre half. So I think Johnson Clark Harris will be guaranteed a start personally, and then it's up to Fergie whether he chooses Dembele or Isa. Personally, I would probably give the nod to Dembele if he's fully match fit. That is, obviously missed the first game, and I don't know sort of how many games he's played in pre-season, but he'd be my preferred choice for sure.
Talking about the way that we talk about Peterborough, sort of your recruitment and the way that's working, and Darragh MacAnthony, and obviously last year I was really lucky to speak to Darragh, and I'll openly admit I'm actually quite a big fan of Darragh. I kind of like the way that he speaks. I think he's quite straightforward. I think there's no bullshit there from what I can see. There's maybe a little bit to drive a player's price up, but that's effectively his job and that's effectively his business. And I think he does a really good job. But at Sunderland, we've seen our chairman originally speak an awful lot in public, like almost too much, and it, for a number of reasons, it completely backfired, and now he's like nowhere to be seen. Whereas Darragh has been quite open, honest, and sort of speaks really openly and almost like a fan at points, because I'm sure he is. But it never has at any point really gone sour from the outside looking in. So why do you think the kind of open and honest dialogue that Darragh has works for Peterborough?
I think he's brilliant. I just want to say that just in case he does listen to this one. I think he's absolutely brilliant. There's not a chairman in the world I'd have in instead of him. He speaks the truth.
Yeah.
And some fans may look at it and think, oh, being a bit of an idiot, being a bit rude, but he's straight up, and that's what you need to be if you to get sort of run a football club. And he's honest with the fans. He doesn't hide anything from the fans, and I just think the fans appreciate it. And the majority of fans, especially ones that have supported the club for a long time, know how bad things were before MacAnthony sort of took charge. So a lot of fans do appreciate him, and I think they respect his honesty. And him and obviously we've got co-owners from Canada now that help him out. It's not just him in charge, and all three of them have been fantastic for the club. All three are on Twitter. All three of them will interact with fans and tell you their feelings and how they feel the team's performed and that. And I just think that honesty is what you need from the top, rather than the chairman hiding and sort of not taking any responsibility on their shoulders.
Yeah, I think I 100% echo what you're saying. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think, for us, Stuart Donald, probably because a few things that he said I think other people didn't buy into it and necessarily didn't agree with it. I think it was true. Whereas I think with Darragh, I think even if you disagree with what he says, you can appreciate that what's coming out of his mouth is 100% honesty. But I talked before now, I've probably done him a disservice by saying he drives players' prices up. I think what I quite like about Darragh is he might say, I want this much money for a player, but he very rarely sells them for less. Like, even I was surprised he didn't get about 8 million for Ivon Toney, because I thought he'd actually get what he wanted for that. I think it was more the climate that maybe knocked that down a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously difficult times at the minute for everyone. I think when you've got a player that not wants to leave the football club, because I do believe that Ivon Toney did enjoy his time at Peterborough, but he wanted more, and he deserves the chance to play in the Championship. So when you've got a player that wants to pursue a move, it's hard to sort of knock those prices up, because obviously the club know that the player's interested in the move. So obviously that, the timings of everything did make it difficult. I don't know the full sum. I think it was 5 mil plus add-ons. You never know what those add-ons are. We could be due 5 million if Brentford got promoted to the Premier League this season. So I believe that everyone at Peterborough will have got the best deal that they can for Ivon Toney, because he was a massive player for us and he was our biggest asset. So I think they'll have done what they can to get a good fee. And I think MacAnthony will be happy with the business that we've done this summer for sure.
Yeah, you certainly seem so via Twitter. When you had the situation, going back to the Wickham situation, whilst we're on Darragh, were you quite proud that he was kind of openly and honestly saying exactly what he thought about the situation with obviously the playoffs happening and Peterborough being booted out? Is it quite nice having someone that talked like a fan being on your side, essentially, and speaking not in maybe not the most professional terms, but the correct terms, and saying what he actually thinks?
Yeah, of course it is. It's nice to see that the chairman's as passionate as the supporters are. And I
Yeah.
think that helps the fans buy into his idea and Ferguson's idea of what we want for the football club. When you've got a chairman that's as passionate as he is, and that it encourages you as well to be that sort of passionate. And he wasn't scared to say how he felt, and I think rightly so. I think maybe if more chairman and owners had come out and said how they felt, then the outcome may have been different. And you never know, we might have been in the Championship now and Wycombe might still be in League One. But things worked out the way they did. But yeah, it's great to have a manager who will say how he feels. And I don't think he will change for anyone. He's done interviews on Sky Sports and stuff where they've been controversial, but he sticks to his guns and he is who he is. And I think he's absolutely fantastic for Peterborough United.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's great, and he's a from my interactions with him, a fantastic gentleman. To be honest with you, is the only way I can sort of put it.
Would you take him at Sunderland? Would you?
I would probably take just about anyone something ahead of what we have at the minute. So 100%, yes.
I don't blame you.
If he's got to spend 35 million down the side of his couch, he's more than welcome here. On the subject of Sunderland, I always find it supremely interesting who people view as almost dangerous players from the outside looking in, because we see our key players and sometimes other people see it completely differently. Which players concern you from the Sunderland team most about facing Peterborough on Saturday?
I wouldn't know where to start. I looked at your team sheet obviously before we came on here from the Oxford game, and I think Will Grigg was an unused substitute. Whether or not he's performing as well as Will Grigg can, the fact that you've got Will Grigg sat on the subs bench not being used is sort of, it shows the talent that you've got in your team. I tweeted out when Danny Graham joined you that I think he'll be up there in terms of top goal scorers in the league. But probably I'm quite glad. I think George Dobson's suspended, isn't he?
Yeah.
If I'm right, he got sent off against Bristol Rovers.
I think it's a 3-game. I could be wrong, but I think it's a 3-game.
Yeah,
yes.
I think it was a straight red, so that would make sense for me. He's a big loss for you.
That'd be controversial for Sunderland fans, because I openly admit I'm a big George Dobson fan, but I think I'm the only one. Everyone else seemingly can't stand George Dobson, but he's still a young boy with a lot to give. But a lot of people are not big fans of him at all.
No. Well, everyone's going to. Some players divide opinions, don't they? And like I said, Maddison's sort of the same. But one player that I did read earlier that he might be out with a hamstring injury. One player that if he did play, I'd be very concerned about would be Max Power. I've watched him for a good few years now, and I think he's far too good for League One. If he is injured for Saturday, then that would be a big loss for you, especially because I think the midfield will be key. We've got a young lad, Jack Taylor, who we signed from Barnet, who is up there as well for me in midfielders in League One. Max Power would take that crown from me. So if he's not playing, then that would be brilliant. And I'm just naming every player in your team now, but you look at your defence as well. You said Oxford haven't started the season that well. Last year they were top goal scorers, if not up there in League One last season. So to keep a clean sheet at Oxford, I know obviously home advantage isn't really a thing anymore. To keep a clean sheet at Oxford shows that your defence is obviously more than capable as well. So I know you asked a specific player and I've just listed every position, but you do have quality all around the field. And
it's almost the reason that they sort of asked the question, because it's like, I think a lot of the time I think I tipped us to finish 8th at the end of the season, and yet when I've asked the question so far in these shows, there's a good 3 or 4 players that people seem to worry about, and it's sometimes refreshing from a Sunderland perspective to hear that we're actually not as bad as we think we are. So no, we absolutely appreciate that. I've got to be honest with you. You talked about home advantage before, and it's not really a thing if we're honest with each other. It's the stadium like empty, I imagine, is incredibly different to what it's like when there's 35,000, 30,000 fans, you know, really getting behind the team from what's likely to be a promotion clash. But does that make you more confident going into Saturday, or were you confident anyway?
I wouldn't say confident was the word. I'm always optimistic with Peterborough. We could be playing Barcelona at the weekend, then I'd be positive that we'd get a result. Obviously, some call it stupid, I call it optimistic. But I think no matter where you're playing Sunderland, it's going to be a difficult game. whether you're playing them at home in front of fans, away in front of fans, it's always going to be a difficult game. The fact that the fans aren't there, I guess it is a bonus. I said I've never been to the Stadium of Light personally, but obviously I watched the Netflix documentaries. I'm sure so many people did, and even when the fans weren't doing, even when the team weren't doing well, and you got relegated from the Championship, you were still getting the fans in there, and they were still making a noise and stuff like that. So playing behind closed doors could benefit us in a way, but I think it's all to play for. I think it's 50-50 which way the game goes, and it just depends which team starts the best. I think if you get an early goal, then the whole game changes.
Yeah. What would be your prediction?
Oh, well, I'd never bet against my team losing. So looking at the sort of our recent games against you and that, my parents asked me before I came on here what my prediction would be. So I'm going to have to go with a score draw. I can't say I'm confident enough to come away with a victory from Stadium of Light, but you never know. Maybe 1-1, 2-2. Who knows? It's going to be a really interesting game, and it's one of them that I said I've never been to the Stadium of Light. Gutted that I'm not going to get the chance to again this season, because it's the best stadium in League One without a shadow of doubt, I think, isn't it? So
I'm biased, but yes.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that from the outside. I mean, Sunderland being in League One, I didn't think I'd ever thought that Posh would be playing Sunderland, because for all of my childhood, you were a Premier League team. So having Sunderland in League One, it is a big thing, and going to the Stadium of Light for Posh fans is something that we haven't ever got to experience, going to sort of stadiums like that apart from in cup games. So it's a shame that the fans aren't there, but it's going to be a really good game, and I'm really excited to watch it on iFollow.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, thanks very much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. I always say don't enjoy your Saturday, but that's not a nasty thing. You are playing us. That's only the way it is, and I'm sure the sentiments are echoed. But thanks very much for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, mate. Been a pleasure.
Not a problem.